Hello, welcome back to our series on biblically responsible investing. If you are just jumping in for the first time, down in the description box I will put the playlist that has all of the videos we've done so far in this series. I'm Julie.
And I'm Jason.
And we have been going through this book, The Wall Street Awakening, The Heart and Mind of Investing with Biblical Integrity. Jason is a financial advisor, and this book was actually written by the president of the firm where
I work, which is Integrity Investors.
Yeah, you can check them out too. I'll put all the links down below so you can have some time browsing around through that. But today we are actually going to be talking...
The winner.
Oh, yes. I can't forget the winner. We can't jump into the topic yet. We have a winner! Each week we are choosing one winner to win a copy of this book. And so our latest winner is Tina Reyes.
Reyes? That's what I was thinking.
We'll see who's right. Maybe you could tell us how to pronounce your last name.
Please let us know.
Tina, if you could email Jason.
That's right, at jason@integrityinvestors.com.
Yep, send him your address and we will mail you your copy of this book.
That's right.
To enter to win, all you have to do is leave some kind of comment below. So
preferably a question, but
yes,
comments are great.
Definitely a question if you
Relevant
have one.
question.
Because they are going to be doing a Q&A video. Mark Manella and Jason will be doing it very soon.
Two of them at least.
Yes.
So one probably next time.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So any financial question that you have, anything pertaining to Christian investing, or just, go ahead and ask that in the comment section. Or you could just give us a comment or say that you're here, and you will be entered to win a copy of this book.
That's right.
Okay, now can we begin?
Yes.
All right, we are going to be going through just a quick history of the Bible when it relates to money and investing. It's going to be very brief. So the concept of faith influencing our investing is not new, but it's just not commonly known.
That's right. So in 1990s, there was an explosion of communication and information. So that went along with the internet. And so now, whether you're rich or poor, Mark talks about how all this information was readily available and people were informing themselves. And so now you have stuff that wasn't common knowledge becoming
available.
Yeah, right.
But it started back, actually, he talks about in the 60s. He says this was a time that Christians began looking at social issues and injustices. And actually, February 5th, 1962, in the business and finance section of the New York Times, the headline was, "Faith Crusade Urged. Peel's call Christian social issues paramount now." I think that's a pretty big deal that it was in the New York Times like that.
It was a big deal. And it's as if it couldn't be held back any longer, becoming public knowledge.
Mm-hmm. And he says this was a time of rethinking and questioning life decisions, including financial activities and the impact of those decisions on the American culture, the world, and personal contentment. And like Jason was saying, that whenever there's a jump in our communication,
technology,
it kind of expands. So at this time, it was the telephone.
Right.
These things, made a leap. And so I think it helped people to kind of connect more. Instead of their world being this big, suddenly it got this big. And then again, when the internet came in the 90s, it got even bigger.
Right.
So we're going to go back even farther, though.
200 years prior to this, John Wesley's sermon on the use of money says, "But this is certain, we ought not to do. We ought not to gain money at the expense of life. Those who have anything to do with taverns, brothels, if they are either sinful in themselves or natural outlets to sin of various kinds, then it is to be feared you have a sad account to make."
So I was really moved by the next quote he shares, which jumps back even further, even 200 years before then. It's John Calvin's book, The Life of a Christian. This is the early mid-16th century. And he says, "In regard to everything that God has bestowed upon us, and by which we can aid our neighbor, we are his stewards, and are bound to give an account of our stewardship. Moreover, that the only right mode of administration is that which is regulated by love. His declaration was and is to manage our investments in and through the guidelines of love.
Right. I think it's interesting that, the translation that I read, when it talks about love, it actually substitutes the word charity. And I had a hard time when I was reading my Bible before, and it says, love is kind, love is gentle, and all that stuff. And I was like, okay, love is just a word that we use in our society or overuse. Oh, I love those potato chips, or I love whatever. And that's a whole other sermon. But the idea that love or charity is something that's not out of you're not forced to do it. You're doing it because this is coming out of you. Like, you almost can't hold it back. Okay, and so that we are to use our resources to be good stewards out of love, not out of obligation. And so 1 Corinthians 13, verse 4 through 7 says, charity suffers long and is kind. Charity envies not. Charity does not boast of itself, is not puffed up, does not behave itself unseemingly, seeks not her own. It is not easily provoked, thinks no evil, rejoices not in iniquity, but rejoices in the truth, bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Again, it's not an obligation. Because of this great love for God, we are given an ability to invest our time, our energy, our resources, our investments in things that don't hurt or harm anyone else.
For me, it's a shift in my viewpoint of this, because I tend to be one that will quickly jump to a point of almost feeling guilty, like, oh, we need to make sure that we are not supporting the wrong things. We have to support the right things. Rules. But I think that's why this moved me so much, is because it's that we get to.
Right.
Because of our love for others, we get to support the things that are for the well-being or the health or the wholeness of our society, of people, and we get to not support the things that might hurt someone else because we love them.
Right. Or we go against what we believe to be true. I think it's interesting, though, too. Early in our faith, we look back at some of the things that we decided to do, either as parents or as adults, and it was out of maybe legalism or whatever. And I don't believe that is entirely bad. And what I mean by that is that it led us to a place of freedom now.
Yes. In some ways, I think it was the beginning for us of doing that out of love. Because we loved God.
We did.
And we just wanted to please Him, and we didn't know how. And so for us, it was very important to just have guidelines and stick with them. And as we've grown, we've learned that it really just comes back to loving God and loving others, to the point that, we don't have to focus on rules. We can just focus on love, and how are we using what God has given us to extend love to other people.
Yeah, and like our love just basically matured and continues to mature.
Yes.
We're definitely not there.
Amen. I had this underlined because I thought it was really good. We are instructed to keep our investment activities within the guidelines of love, participating only in those things that do not provoke, act rudely, rejoice in iniquity, or think evil, to invest only in that which does not harm others or ourselves. And, this sounds very simple. When we step aside, like if you're watching this video later, you might think, well, wait a second, how do I do that from a practical standpoint when the world of finance seems so far out of my understanding? And we will get more into the details
practical
of that.
Side of it,
right,
yes.
So we're not going to leave you hanging there.
Yeah.
But this is just kind of the overall thought is, you might ask yourself, how could partnering with companies that use or abuse people ever reconcile with these tenets of love. Whew. So Martin Luther, 1524, going back even farther. This is what he said about those who profit from biblically offensive business activities. He said, among themselves, the merchants have a common rule, which is their chief maxim. I care nothing about my neighbor, so long as I can have my profit and satisfy my greed. Of what concern is it to me if it injures my neighbor in 10 ways at once? There you see how shamelessly this flies squarely in the face, not only of Christian love, but also of natural law.
So the knowledge of the biblical guidelines on how to use money isn't new. It's not a new concept. But why does it seem like a new one? It's because of our development in investments as a whole. So in the 1960s, only 15% of Americans held stocks or mutual funds. And so there's a progression. In 1970, the IRAs come along. And again, an IRA is an individual retirement account that gave the individuals power to start saving for retirement. In the 1980s and 1990s, you see that the companies are starting to take away their programs and their pensions and the retirement funds, and then started putting the responsibility on the worker. And so the 401k became popular and was starting to be utilized. So now as we progress in investing, more people are now forced to become a part of these investments and now are holding these investments. And so that's why this may seem like a new concept, even though we've just walked through how this dates back to the Bible, right? Mm-hmm. So as we grow closer to God, He illuminates or reveals these things to us. Again, kind of like we were talking about, the sanctification. It's like a maturity in our faith or love. And so He is going to meet us where we're at. And so if you're not, ready to put on the banner and run down the street screaming this from the top of your lungs, okay, but what is God calling us to do? Mm-hmm. That's where we're at.
Let me end with this A.W. Tozer quote. A free Christian should act from within with a total disregard for the opinions of others. If a course is right, he should take it because it is right, not because he is afraid not to take it. And if it is wrong, he should avoid it, though he lose every earthly treasure and even his very life as a consequence. This is good.
Again, I think this comes back to where God is calling you. What is He calling you to do? What are the things that He is bringing to your mind, to your heart, that He is giving you wisdom for? Maybe it's no accident that you're watching this right now. Maybe He's calling you into a closeness of what it is that you would do with your resources, or how you could become a better steward.
And He's so faithful. If we are seeking Him, He will answer us.
That's right.
Whether
Absolutely.
It's finances or anything else, He's faithful.
Wisdom, right.
So I think next time we meet, it's actually going to be a Q&A video.
Mark and I.
So I'm really excited to see that.
I enjoy them. I think they're fun, personally.
Yeah, I like Q&A videos too. Also, please don't forget to comment below so that you can be entered to win. And we will see you guys very soon. Thank you so much for joining us with this. It has been a blessing to us.
We enjoy it.